Are you struggling to come up with original content week in and week out? Start a podcast. Interview your ideal clients, let them talk about what they care about most, and never run out of content ideas again. Learn more at sweetfishmedia.com.
You're listening to B2B Growth, a daily podcast for B2B leaders. We've interviewed names you've probably heard before, like Gary Vaynerchuk and Simon Sinek, but you've probably never heard from the majority of our guests. That's because the bulk of our interviews aren't with professional speakers and authors. Most of our guests are in the trenches leading sales and marketing teams. They're implementing strategy. They're experimenting with tactics. They're building the fastest growing B2B companies in the world. My name is James Carberry. I'm the founder of Sweetfish Media, a podcast agency for B2B brands, and I'm also one of the co-hosts of this show. When we're not interviewing sales and marketing leaders, you'll hear stories from behind the scenes of our own business. We'll share the ups and downs of our journey as we attempt to take over the world. Just kidding. Well, maybe. Let's get into the show.
Welcome. My name is Samantha Stone, and I'm the host of Authenticity in the Age of Artificial Intelligence. Have you ever wondered how accurate facial recognition software is? I have, and you might be shocked to find out the answer. MIT researcher Joy Buolamwini, and I'm sorry, Joy, if I'm mispronouncing your last name, found that for dark-skinned women, the facial recognition software was wrong 34.7% of the time. Now, you might be thinking that's not so bad. That means in almost 3/4 of the cases, the facial recognition software accurately identifies an individual person from a photo or from a still in a video. That sounds pretty good. And it does sound good until you compare it with light-skinned men. That same sampling has an error rate of less than 1%. So almost every time this facial application looks at an image or a video, it correctly identifies light-skinned men. But in 34.7% of the time, the facial recognition fails to correctly identify a dark-skinned woman. Now, why is that? Is this application evil? No, the answer is actually really simple. The training data that was used on this application was deeply flawed and biased. Every time we build an application using artificial intelligence, in this case, facial recognition, we need to train the system so it can start learning. And just like we learn as human beings, we point the algorithm towards a specific set of experiences, and it learns from those set of experiences. Now, the problem arises if the training database that we have created has a skewed set of images. In this case, the training database had a lot more light-skinned men, didn't have enough diversity in it. So the algorithm got really good at identifying light-skinned men and not so good at identifying dark-skinned women. Now, the people who are developing these applications aren't evil. They just were using an incomplete set of training data. And the good news is, this is relatively easy to solve. In fact, IBM acted on this information in a really effective way. They built a 1 million image library that has a lot more diversity in it that can be used specifically to train facial recognition systems. Now, you might be thinking, this is really fascinating, and that sounds so simple, but I'm not sure it applies to me. But it does, because any time that we use artificial intelligence-based applications to help us make decisions, we have to train those systems on data. For example, if we want to figure out if a particular segment of the market has a propensity to purchase our product higher than a different segment of the market, we have to give an algorithm some data to train on so it can start to learn and identify which segments are most likely to buy from us. But if we have highly skewed data upon that training, so too the results will be skewed and different. So whether we're building an application to help us identify customers that we should be targeting, or we're a government agency that is looking to do security applications to correctly find and identify people who might be wanted in an open and public area, training our systems is incredibly important. And the only way to eliminate training bias is to make sure that the database is diverse enough to address the full opportunity to learn. Thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you, Joy and IBM, for giving us a fantastic example of how training bias can exist, but more importantly, how we can easily address it with proper planning and a little foresight.
We totally get it. We publish a ton of content on this podcast, and it can be a lot to keep up with. That's why we've started the B2B Growth Big Three, a no-fluff email that boils down our 3 biggest takeaways from an entire week of episodes. Sign up today at sweetfishmedia.com/big3. That's sweetfishmedia.com/big3.